And over the last 12 months, I've noticed the increasing go east mentality from the oil majors. Obviously, demand is absolutely voracious in the emerging markets, particularly China and, of course, India. And as a consequence, the majors are called upon to better comprehend that mentality, better understand it, and making structural changes to reflect that.
One of the topics that are really driving me is the new, let's say, the bridge towards renewable energies, which I understand, or in our opinion, is really the blue gold, which is natural gas. And we see a lot of, specifically big players coming out of Russia, primarily Gazprom, investing heavily in that kind of business because they have the natural resources, and we see, and we already saw and still see a lot of significant change in their approach to market. So far, they've invested in companies, what we would call the middleman, but now they really started to reach out to consumers. You can see that in their effort to invest in their brand, so they are very active in sponsorships and the like.
A big change in the past 12 months, I think, has been the way the UK petrol markets change. With the Coraton refinery going bust, I think it brings forward in people's minds that the money isn't always made by the refining market, and someone else is making the money. And with the high prices now feeling normal, I think that's a change to the consumer perception of the industry.
The brands in the oil and gas category have been rebuilding trust and confidence in themselves amongst the public and in governments after the Gulf of Mexico disaster for BP, because in the next few years, and indeed next year, they will be needing to explore places like the Arctic and deep offshore, where public acceptance of that activity is incredibly important and can't be guaranteed.
So I think over the last 12 months, the economic situation has really changed the game for many energy firms around the world. Obviously, we're still seeing massive growth in demand in Asian markets. The extent to which that growth continues, I think, is going to be have a critical role for energy firms moving forwards. Obviously, North America as well. We've seen the shale gas revolution as those reserves have really started to come on stream, and talk has started to turn to whether those reserves could actually be exported. That's probably unlikely, but it's certainly changed the demand cycle in the US. I think in Europe, we're now starting to see the debates change. The climate targets, for example, I think have moved down in public consciousness as we have seen the economic constraints start to move up the public consciousness. And that presents a challenge, particularly for firms in the renewable energy sector. And I think, you know, in the traditional sector, as we start to see potentially shale reserves coming on stream in Europe, new sources of gas via for example, the Nord Stream pipeline from Russia. It's a challenging time for policymakers in Europe to try and meet the energy challenge at a time of massive economic disruption.